experiential conviction. So when the truths of the Shastras, the truths of the scriptures, even if we have understood it intellectually, unless it becomes a matter of experience, live experience. That is why Mahatma Gandhi, when he wrote a beautiful foreword to the life of Sri Ramakrishna, normally he avoided writing foreword to anybody's biography, however great that person may be. His own guru, Srimad Raj Chandra, a Jain Muni who was very close to Mahatma Gandhi, his own guru's autobiography, or guru, or maybe he was a teacher. He was not his guru, but he was a teacher who taught him ahimsa and all those things, which are part of Jain philosophy. So this Srimad Raj Chandra was a great yogi, and though Mahatma Gandhi revered him so much, he did not agree to write a foreword to his autobiography, because his biography, because he felt that unless he has an experiential knowledge of the things which his teacher, he should have, if he was convinced that whatever his teacher says he has experienced it in his own life, then he would have perhaps written. His love for truth was so much, but he did not hesitate when it came to Sri Ramakrishna. Somehow he was convinced that Sri Ramakrishna was a person who has definitely seen God face to face. And he knew, Mahatma Gandhi knew, that when Sri Ramakrishna talks about God, talks about his experiences, every word of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which he might have definitely read, Mahatma Gandhi had definitely read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So when he wrote the foreword, he writes in the first few sentences, they read like this: Sri Ramakrishna's life and teachings enable one to see God face to face. Now what does he mean? He says his conviction was that the words of Sri Ramakrishna are the words of something which he has experienced. Everything that Sri Ramakrishna spoke were matters of his own experience. Otherwise he will say, I have read it in this book, or this Pandit has told me, that Pandit told me. So he was very honest, and he used to admit that these were the things he heard. But if he says something with conviction, that means Sri Ramakrishna has experienced those truths, and that is why they left an indelible mark on the hearers. The people, when they heard him, they got a feeling that here is a person who means what he says, who not only means, who has experienced what he says. That's why when Narendranath was so skeptical, having asked all the great teachers of, including Keshav Chandra Sen and all the great stalwarts of some of the reform movements of India of those days, when he goes to those people, when he went to those people and asked them, see, you are preaching certain things, but have you experienced these truths? At least have you a very little experience of what you call as God experience, or experience of Brahman, or whatever the sect believes in. Have you experienced those truths? And Sri Ramakrishna was perhaps the first one who said, I not only see him, but I can show God to you also. So here Pandit Shashadhar knew. Pandit Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani was very close to Thakur. There are about 6 or 7 times he has met, as recorded in the Gospel. He might have met Sri Ramakrishna for more than that, but then it was Sri Ramakrishna who insisted that he wanted to meet Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani. That is the greatness or humility of Sri Ramakrishna. Whenever he heard that there is a sincere soul, struggling soul, who needs help, so he used to himself go, and when he hears that Pandit Shashadhar is in somebody's house, Thakur himself agrees to go there to meet him. But later on we'll see the subsequent 5 meetings, it is Pandit Shashadhar who is attracted by the depth of Sri Ramakrishna's experience, and then he understands that here is a person, I just give the theoretical framework, but here is a person who has experienced all these truths which I just explained to others. So he was very keen, and then Sri Ramakrishna also loved him so much, as is evident from these conversations which we are going to read now. He is discussing about the different paths of yoga now. That's what we discussed last time. But here you will find that Pandit Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani is a person whom Sri Ramakrishna said, in future you will be taking my teachings and you will be preaching about me to other people. That Sri Ramakrishna very rarely gave this privilege to others, except Narendranath. He had told Narendranath that you will preach, and then it happened. Though Narendranath was not very much willing, he first wanted to have an experience of samadhi or God realization. He was not interested then, but still Sri Ramakrishna said, no, Naren will teach the world. As Vivekananda, it happened later, so Naren will teach the world. That was Sri Ramakrishna's verdict about him. So there were quite a few people like Master Mahashay M, who recorded the gospel. Sri Ramakrishna had chosen them to do certain duties which would benefit humanity. One of them was Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani. So though he was a scholar, but he was honest enough to know that unless I have the experiences about which I am speaking in my talks, he was restless. He was restless to have these experiences. And by Sri Ramakrishna's grace, he had those experiences. When he retired and went to Kamakhya, did a lot of sadhana. And Sri Ramakrishna said, after preaching or after spreading the teachings of this place, means Sri Ramakrishna's own teachings, you will attain the goal of life. So that was a great, it was a matter of great joy to Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani, who knew that perhaps I will die like a scholar, I may not realize the truths, because he knew sadhana was difficult. To have the experience is a totally different thing. To understand it or to even explain it to others is very, very easy. So Shashadhar, being a genuine person, was very happy when Sri Ramakrishna told him that you will not only preach my teachings all over the world, not all over the world, all over this Bengal, but at the same time, before you die, you will definitely experience God or realize God. So that conviction made him so faithful to Sri Ramakrishna, and then we see in the subsequent meetings he is asking some very, very good questions. So one of the questions, Sri Ramakrishna is asking these questions and finally comes to the conclusion that the path of Jnana Yoga, which we discussed last time, is difficult because a Jnana Yogi has to give up the pair of opposites right from the beginning of the sadhana. A Bhakti Yogi, a person who follows the path of Bhakti, may consider the world to be real, his desires to be real, all the things, small things of life, he can be attached to them and he has to slowly give up the attachment. As he goes on increasing his attachment towards God or his Ishta, slowly he doesn't have to violently give up the world. Slowly the things of the world, the worldly matters and the worldly things automatically fall off themselves. So it is a more natural path for householders. That is why Sri Ramakrishna is telling the Pandit, who was obviously a householder, he is being told that in this age the path of bhakti is much better, because in jnana you have to give up the body consciousness. Thakur says, if you are aware of disease, grief, pleasure and pain, then how can you be a jnana yogi? How can you be a man of knowledge? Even if your hand is torn by thorns, you bleed profusely and suffer pain, yet you may have to say, no, my hand is not scratched and torn, nothing has happened to me. That kind of stoic courage should be there in a jnani right from the beginning. Not that he acquires these qualities as he proceeds. He has to have those wonderful qualities of having lost the consciousness of the body. He should be able to suffer pain and pleasure and look upon both as equal. But if you cannot do that, then the most natural way is to follow the path of bhakti, do japa, do upasana, do sadhana, worship the God, and hope that meditating on God, who is of the nature of consciousness, one day will enable us to understand what that consciousness is, what that Param Purusha is, and slowly loosen our bonds in a very, very gradual way, taking the help of Prakriti, Parama Prakriti, as I told you last time. It's a more natural and gradual way. We don't have to violently give up or give up all of a sudden all these things. So we discussed that in the Gita class yesterday, that Sannyasa Yoga is not meant for everybody. So a gradual path is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. That is why Sri Ramakrishna is saying, For this age, the path of love and devotion is the best. One can approach God more easily through it than by any other path. One can reach God by way of knowledge or action and by other paths too, but all these are very difficult. Bhakti Yoga is the religion for this age. This does not mean that the lover of God reaches one goal and the followers of the path of knowledge and action, Karma Yoga, reach another goal. It only means that those who want the knowledge of Absolute will attain it even if they adopt and tread the path of love and devotion. Remember that the gracious, loving Lord of the devotees grants knowledge of Brahman if he so wishes. So he is so gracious that if he feels that he should give the knowledge of Brahman, after attaining bhakti, if his grace is there, he may give you that knowledge also. So the double advantage of following the path of bhakti is that you may reach the same goal which Gyanis reach in a more natural and a more easy way. Now the question is, does a devotee attain knowledge of the Absolute? How does he perform actions and prayer? Now Sri Ramakrishna is continuing, he is explaining to Shashadhar Tarkachudamani, the Pandit, the devotee wants to see God with form. Now this is very important. See, unless you consider the Sat Chit Ananda, the Param Purusha, as a human being, unless your approach to God is intensely human, you cannot possibly practice Bhakti Yoga. Because to practice Bhakti Yoga, you should have love. It begins with human love. Unless you consider God as a human being, one with whom you can share your experiences, you can tell your sorrows, you can express your problems, you can express your sorrows just like you express your problems to other people, to other human beings. You should be able to consider or have a bhava, some kind of relationship with that God. Then Bhakti Yoga becomes easy. That is why in Bhakti Yoga they have these 5 bhavas. One is considering God as your father or mother, better still mother, because mother is closer to the child than the father. So you can consider God in any one of these major bhavas which our Bhakti scriptures have asked us to do. It is not enough if you just meditate on Sri Ramakrishna as Sachidananda. Of course, he is Sachidananda. For a Jnani, he is Sachidananda, he is Brahman. But he has taken this form as you would like to see him in this particular form. And you would like to talk to him, you would like to express your wishes, your desires, your problems, all your things, as if you are approaching somebody who is more dear than all the relatives and friends and everybody put together. So he is somebody who is, though he is intensely human, at the same time he is transcendental and he is Sachidananda Brahman. So this balancing act we have to do, and that is what Bhakti Yoga tells you to do. So that is why when you consider Sri Ramakrishna as your own, then you can start in a very gradual way. Being intensely human, he can understand your human problems. Because we start with our human problems. We have certain worldly problems, worldly desires, which we cannot give up all of a sudden. So we ask God, sometimes we may even ask God to fulfill our worldly desires. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna said, if God really loves you, He will not give you those toys, because if He knows the toys are going to harm you, the mother will not give you those toys. But if it is harmless, now and then, mother may give you those toys. That is what Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that the mother knows very well that this particular thing is harmful for my child. So it will feed him only those things which it can digest. Just because the child asks something, the mother will not give him anything and everything to eat. So this is something which is very important to understand, that when we have a human relationship with God, particularly as a mother or as a father, which are the closest relationship a human being can have, or even as a sakha, a friend, or as a beloved, there are so many relations. Madhura Bhava is there, where you consider God as your beloved. Mirabai considered Sri Krishna as her beloved. She did not consider any human being. She was so detached to all human beings. She had given up everything But for her, Krishna was more human than all the human beings put together. So he was her beloved. So also for Yashoda, Krishna was a child. He was just a human child for her. She did not want to see him as Satchidananda Brahman. Though Sri Krishna tried so many times to show himself or to present himself as Satchidananda Brahma, the cosmic form, he showed Mother Yashoda. But Mother, you would forget that. And then she said, no, I don't want to see you as Satchidananda. I am happy to see you as my child. A intensely human affection, the maternal affection she had, the Vatsalya Bhava as it is known towards child Krishna was a unique feature. So along with bhakti, see Sri Krishna, without even her asking him, he gave him the knowledge of Brahman. He showed him the entire reality, what he really was. And he got whatever the Gyanis get through meditation. Yashoda got it very easily by considering Sri Krishna as a child, as a human being, as a child, very much her own child of flesh and blood. That's what she wanted to Sri Krishna as. So also our relationship with our incarnation, it is always good to have a Matri Bhav. Matri Bhav means, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Matru Bhav means the feeling a child has towards the mother. That is one of the strongest attachment which a human being can understand. There is no other human attachment which can be greater than that, unless of course there are exceptions. If the mother is not, in most of the cases, you see the children are attracted or attached to the mother like nobody else. So there may be exceptions, but at the same time, this is supposed to be the highest relationship one can have when it comes to human beings. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that this human relationship, if we convert, if we apply to God as our mother or as our father, then it becomes easy to practice Bhakti Yoga. So he wants to, the devotee, now we come to what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. He wants to talk to him. The devotee wants to see the God with form. Usually doesn't want the knowledge of the Absolute. He doesn't want to see him as Satchidananda, just as Yashoda did not want. Even so, God's will is the law. If He wills, He can bestow on the devotee. See, this is something very unique. All the spiritual wealth, He gives not only love and devotion, but gives divine knowledge as well. And He gives a beautiful example now. If one can get to Calcutta, one can see the Fort Maidan, the Asiatic Society's museum, everything. But the question is how to reach Calcutta. So once you realize God with form or without form, the other aspects of God can be easily accessible. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is telling Pandit. The Pandit was a dry type of Pandit. He was perhaps full of jnana. So Sri Ramakrishna is very, very tactfully telling him that the path of Bhakti Yoga is easier for you, and if you want knowledge, the knowledge which you are trying to understand through scriptures, through learning of Sanskrit and all the scriptures, that same knowledge, if Mother wills, if God wills, He or Mother can give you that knowledge also, along with the other things which She can give. She of course can give her own vision. You can have her vision, have the experience of God as she decides. Now coming to the experiences, you see Sri Ramakrishna had so many disciples. Each one of them had a different experience of God. Narendranath, unfortunately, though he wanted to experience God with form, Sri Ramakrishna wanted him to, for several reasons, he wanted him to follow the path of knowledge. So naturally he did not have the experiences which Swami Brahmananda and even some householder disciples had. So he was perhaps thinking that why is Sri Ramakrishna denying these wonderful experiences of devotion to me, these devotional experiences which these people go into ecstasy after hearing the kirtan. They may be seeing the visions of Krishna, they may be seeing the visions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why am I not seeing those visions? So he was a little upset and he complained to Sri Ramakrishna that why do I not get these bhavas? Does that mean I am spiritually inferior to these people? That doubt came to Sri Ramakrishna, to Swamiji's mind, Vivekananda's mind. Then he gives him a beautiful explanation. He says, don't think just because you don't have an experience or somebody else has an experience or a vision or some kind of uh, devotional experience or bhava, that doesn't mean that they are superior or you are inferior in any way. To give an example, he says, the greater you are, the less experiences you have. Because he says, a person, a very big elephant, if it enters a pond, it will splash water. Whereas if that same elephant goes into a huge sea, if it enters a sea, there would hardly be any wave there. The waves are so big and the ocean is so vast that the elephant is like a small ant entering its waters. So also he says, your heart is so big, your heart is so large, your capacity is so much, your spiritual capacity, that small visions and small experiences will not shake it. Whereas for other people, even a small experience will shake them and give them ecstasy and give them a lot of joy. For you, you need higher experiences to give that same kind of joy, because your capacity is more and you have to do more work, a greater amount of work, which he ultimately did. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that God, if you worship him as a human being or as an avatara, as your Ishta, he not only gives love and devotion but also divine knowledge as well. And just as once you go to Calcutta, if you so wish, you can see Asiatic Society's museum, some important places, Fort Maidan, those were the important places which tourists used to visit. So Sri Ramakrishna says, you may go to these places if you want, but first you reach Calcutta station, then you will be able to see these places if you want. But whether you go, the path of bhakti is also like that. Once you develop devotion, then by the grace of Mother, you can have any vision or any experience, the experience of Jnanis, the experience of Karma Yogis, the experience of Raj Yogis, whatever the experience, if you want, you will have that. If we see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, he was deeply devoted to Mother, Divine Mother, Bhavatarini. And all his visions, including the vision of Advaita, the gurus, everybody came to him. All he did was he used to cry to Mother and consider Mother as intensely human and used to talk to her and ask her for experiences. And one after another you will see Sri Ramakrishna was given all these visions. Now, that's why Sri Ramakrishna, in the next wonderful paragraph, he says, this is a very, very unique paragraph, and perhaps that influenced Sashadhar Tarka Chudamani, this Pandit, so much that he gave up his job and goes to Kamakhya and practices a lot of austerities and becomes very devoted to the Divine Mother. Kamakhya is a Shakti temple. It's one of the Shakti Pitas in India. And they say that it is one of the most important Shakti Pitas in eastern India. So where goddess is worshipped as goddess Kamakhya. So if you reach so this Shashadhar, now Sri Ramakrishna wants to inculcate a love for the Divine Mother into this dry Pandit. Of course, the Pandit knew that without experience, all my intellectual knowledge is of no use. I should experience something, then only my life is, I can consider my life to be of any use. It will be fruitful, my living would be fruitful. So he says, if you reach the Mother of the universe, you will get love and devotion as well as spiritual knowledge. In Bhava Samadhi is a kind of ecstasy which you get, which you feel when you love this God with a particular bhava. If you love him as Mother, that Vatsalya Bhava, that Matru Bhava will be, it will go on growing till you feel that you cannot live without this Mother. So that is what happened with Sri Ramakrishna. For everything, even when Bhairavi Brahmani came and when Totapuri came and they said, we want to teach you Vedanta, he said, no, let me go and ask my mother. He didn't immediately agree. Though he wanted to practice Advait Sadhana, he said, no, let me go and ask my mother. So they thought he is going to ask his own physical mother, the one who gave him birth. Chandramani Devi was alive at that time. But then he goes to the temple. So can you imagine, for him, the mother was so living, and he used to ask as if one goes and asks a human being. So that is known as bhava samadhi. That bhava, when it gets intense, when it becomes intense, one enters a state which is known as bhava samadhi. It may look very odd that how can a idol or an image respond to your prayers? How can she talk to you? How can she give you? So this intuitional experience is something which comes only if you have this kind of bhava. You develop a relationship, and ultimately you will find that mother really responds to your prayers. She responds, she tells you whether you should do this or whether you should do that. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying, if you somehow reach the mother of the universe, that is Parama Prakriti, you will get love and devotion as well as spiritual knowledge. If she wants, she will give you the spiritual knowledge. She will give you the knowledge of the Gyanis, the knowledge of a Rajyogi, everything she can give. If once you have that Bhav Samadhi. In Bhav Samadhi, you will see God with form as you wish. If you want to see God as Sri Ramakrishna in flesh and blood, you can see him, or you can see him in a vision. Or in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you see Akhanda Satchidananda, the absolute, the indivisible. Akhanda means that which cannot be divided. Unalloyed joy, unalloyed bliss, which will not be disturbed. It will be a continuous joy. So these experiences Narendranath wanted. Swami Vivekananda wanted to be immersed in this kind of bliss because he had tasted this bliss for a few seconds, and that experience made him go to Sri Ramakrishna again and again so that he can remain absorbed in samadhi. But Sri Ramakrishna admonished him. He said, this is a very, very small desire. You are much greater than this. You have to give this experience of samadhi or the experience of Jnana Yoga, the experience of all the different yogas. You have to take it all over the world and share this experience. If you remain immersed in samadhi and then get absorbed in samadhi, how will it benefit the world? So they say, as Swamiji later on said, we begin with Annadana. Dana or gift can be of various grades. We think by feeding somebody we are doing something great. It is very good. We begin with Annadana. Then comes Pranadana. See, we start with the Annamaya Kosha, we do Annadana, then we come to the Pranadana, which is Pranamaya Kosha. When somebody treats a patient, when somebody cures somebody, or the doctor cures somebody, he is actually treating his prana by giving him medicines. So saving a life is Pranadana. So we begin with the gross Annadana, then we do Pranadana, then we come to the other higher faculty which is there in man, that is the Vijnanamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, that is giving skills. Manomaya Kosha is a slightly higher level of human being, so our service also assumes a higher proportion. You teach a man a skill, and with that skill he will be able to buy medicines, he can save his prana, he can also earn money he can earn his living, he can buy food. So Annadana, Pranadana and skill, that is Vidya Dana. Vidya means the secular Vidya. It is a much higher Dana. And finally comes the Dana of spiritual knowledge. So if you give Adhyatmic Vidya Dana, that is the highest because you are solving the problems of that person permanently. That is what Shashadhar here is. He had this, he knew what Annadana was, he knew what Pranadana was, because there were so many charitable works which the king used to do, and perhaps he was also guiding the king to do all these things. But he knew that here is somebody who can remove my miseries forever. So Sri Ramakrishna's idea of the graded dana means gift. So the different types of dana, which Swamiji explained later, was based on what Sri Ramakrishna told. Now we'll come to the three types of gurus which Sri Ramakrishna is going to explain to us. He says, by doing, the devotee says, Mother, I am afraid of praying, performing work with a motive. Though Karma Yoga is very good, the devotee says, I am afraid that if I don't do Karma Yoga properly, if there is some desire, then the action will yield some fruit. and then I may get caught. I may get some name, I may get some fame, I may get a lot of money, and then finally it will divert me from the main goal of life. If karma is to be a yoga, then it cannot be a bhoga, it cannot be a matter of enjoyment. So, because it is difficult, the devotee says, I will earn as much as I need, but at the same time, let my devotion to you be constant. Don't let that suffer. So, in the name of karma, doing karma, I may perhaps forget you. If I do karma remembering you, then it is okay. So, that's why he says, I will see that I don't forget you. Until I attain you, may my work decrease, or may my work be reduced to a minimum, so that whatever little I have to do, I may do without attachment. If I do it without attachment, or whatever work, even if I work for the whole day, if I have devotion for you, if I have the undercurrent flowing that I am doing this work for Thakur, for the Ishta which is within my heart, then my attachment will definitely not come to me. Then I may be ready. I mean, my karma yoga itself becomes bhakti yoga. I am doing all the work for him, for his, to offer it to him ultimately. So in that case, even if you work for the whole day, it will not matter. So once I attain love for you, then all the work which I do will not result in attachment. I shall work only when you command me, and otherwise I will not. So now a stage comes when the devotee feels that everything I do, every action I do is a command of the Lord. So we don't assert our ego and try to do some things which the Lord does not want. The bhakta comes to a stage where he feels that every time he wants to start something, he seeks his permission. Or some people I have seen in our monastery, some of the people who are very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna, they have this habit of keeping the photograph of Sri Ramakrishna, Ma and their Guru and Swami Vivekananda also. And when they go out of their room, they have a habit of just going and taking mother's permission or Thakur's permission. That, see, this duty has fallen to my lot. I am going to do that. You please give me permission. And after the work is over, I have seen some of the senior monks used to practice that. And as soon as, because many of our monks have to do lot of work. They have to work in hospitals, they have to work in schools, colleges, they have to do relief work. Sometimes, especially when we were in India, sometimes we had to work for 18 hours when we were engaged in relief work. Now this coronavirus relief is going on. You see how much work these monks are doing. So when we were in India, sometimes when we did relief and rehabilitation work, we used to go out at 5 o'clock in the morning and return in the evening. So there was hardly any time. So these senior monks taught us that you do the whole thing. Even if you don't get a single minute to sit for meditation, you just come and tell Sri Ramakrishna that, in the morning 5 o'clock I have left, I have finished my work. Whatever work you had given me, it is because of you I have gone and done this work. After doing that, you just offer the fruits to him, just as you would offer the fruits of your japa or sadhana which you are doing. So that is how that karma yoga becomes actually bhakti yoga, because you are doing it for the sake of the Lord. So when you are doing it for the sake of the Lord, the karma yoga doesn't remain just karma, it becomes bhakti yoga. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. That I shall work only when you command me, otherwise not. Now then the Pandit suddenly changes the topic and he is asking, Sir, how far did you go on your pilgrimage? You see, in those days, even today, but now pilgrimage has become more of a tourist attraction. I mean, it's more mainly people go as tourists rather than pilgrims. But there are still people who go with lot of faith and devotion. But in those days, it was so difficult to go. Now things are very easy of access. We can easily book a ticket and go. But those days it was very difficult to go on pilgrimage. So very often they say if you go for Char Dham, there was no guarantee that you will come back alive. They went prepared that we might die on the way. There were so many illnesses and they could contract any disease, and there was no guarantee that they'll get good food. So when Sri Ram Thakur's father, Khudiram, went to Rameshwar, it took several months because they had to go by foot. And for them, pilgrimage means maybe it's the last journey. They were not sure that they'll come back. So they will make all preparations and they'll feel happy if they die in one of these pilgrim places. So Shashadhar is asking Thakur, because he never saw Sri Ramakrishna going anywhere. Sri Ramakrishna was always staying in Dakshineshwar except for a small trip to Banaras, and that also Mathur Babu had arranged a special coach for him. So he did not face any hardship or do anything to go to all these places because he knew the relative importance of pilgrimage and as opposed to japa and sadhana. He preferred to sit in one place and do sadhana rather than just go for the sake of going to the pilgrim places. Of course, he went. And wherever he went, he had wonderful experiences in Vrindavan, he had wonderful experiences in Banaras, and wherever he went, he made the most of it. But he gives a wonderful answer to this Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani. Sri Ramakrishna is smiling. He is answering. See, he is answering in an indirect way. There was a person there whose name was Hajra. Hajra was a hypocrite. He always used to show people that he was more devotional and more religious than Sri Ramakrishna himself and make a lot of comments and misguide people, the devotees. But Sri Ramakrishna allowed him to stay there. He used to sit there outside. And he used to make a show and say that I have gone to this pilgrimage, that pilgrimage, I have gone to Himalayas, and boast to all the people. So Sri Ramakrishna knew, so he's making a joke now. He's in a very joking way, he says, Sri Ramakrishna smiles and says, I saw a few places, but Hajra went farther and higher. He went to Rishikesh. Farther and higher means he just taunting him, saying that Hajra has gone to even Rishikesh, which Sri Ramakrishna could not go, of course. Obviously, he went only up to Vrindavan. So, I did not go that far or that high. Kites and vultures. Then he makes a very, very cryptic remark. Pandit Shashadhar was very much impressed by this because he found that on one hand I am talking of these great spiritual truths. Being employed as a Pandit, he was a householder, and being employed as a Pandit in the court of a king, he had to show his erudition and used to deliver lectures and all those things. But at the same time, he knew that his mind was very worldly. He had not practiced that detachment and discrimination. So Sri Ramakrishna, as it were, to correct him, to remove his ego, he says, kites and vultures soar very high, but their eyes remain fixed on the charnel pits where the carcasses of dead animals are thrown. So all laugh that though apparently the bird seems to be on a very high flight, that is, you go on pilgrimage, you go on all the Himalayan expeditions, and then you feel as if you have done a great achievement by going on pilgrimage. But then if your mind is still attached to the world, what's the use? Do you know what I mean by charnel pits? Lust and greed. If you can cultivate love and devotion for God sitting here, what is the need to go on pilgrimage? When I went to Kashi, I saw the trees were the same. The tamarind leaves there were also the same as here. In whatever he saw in Dakshineshwar, he said the trees are same, the roads are same, the stones are same. Everything was the same. What was so special? So he's in a way trying to discourage people, saying if you don't have the means or if you don't have the ability to go on long pilgrimage, which was very difficult in those days, it was not so easy. Said then why do you bother? Because if the intention is to develop love and devotion for God, then you don't have to go on this pilgrimage. Love for God alone is the essential thing, the only thing needed. Do you know what I mean by kites and vultures? Many people come here and they talk big and say, we have performed many of the rites and duties which our holy books and the Shastras have said, but their minds remain attached to the world. They are so busy with money, name, honor, comfort, and so on. So, in a way, he is saying that on one hand, if you say you have gone on so many pilgrimage places, you have covered that, you have covered this, you have gone to almost every place of pilgrimage, But at the same time, if you are still attached to this world, if you think the world is real, and if you are not attached or developed a love for God, then what is the use of this pilgrimage? So then the Pandit says, yes sir, going on pilgrimage is like searching for diamonds and jewels when throwing away Vishnu's own gem. Kaustubha money was a precious jewel which they say adorned Vishnu. So if you get Vishnu, you get the best jewel of the world. So Pandit now, because he is a scholar, he knows how to explain at least. So he is trying to tell Sri Ramakrishna, yes, going on pilgrimage is like going after small gems and other jewelry when the Kaustubha money of the precious jewel of Vishnu, the Ishta, is there within our heart. So that is what he wants to say. And Sri Ramakrishna said, and you must also know that you may preach 1,000 things, but they will be of no use unless it is the right time. Now this is a very, very important thing Sri Ramakrishna is trying to explain to Shashidhar Tarka Chudamani. He was a Pandit, and naturally as a Pandit he had to address huge gatherings and do a lot of public preaching, because that was what he was paid for. It was his paid profession, so he had to do all these things. So he says, Sri Ramakrishna gives a wonderful example, you see, to how to explain to him that it can be futile if you preach these things to a person who is not ready. A person who is ready, of course, Swami Vivekananda believed, even if a person is not ready, at least in the crowd there will be at least a few who will understand, and that itself is a great advantage. That's why when he came to the West, he was sometimes disgusted. He saw huge crowds, and then he felt, how can I talk about Thakur to these people? Will they be able to practice? Even if they understand, will they be able to do even 5% of what Sri Ramakrishna did? So he was very hesitant to preach about Sri Ramakrishna in the West. So also Sri Ramakrishna is telling Pandit, when he gives an example, when going to bed, a child says to his mother, "Mother, please wake me up when I have to go to the bathroom." See, when small children, they know at night when they feel like going to the bathroom, the child has to depend on the mother to take him or her to the bathroom. So he is used to that. So the child thinks that the mother knows when it is time to go to the bathroom. But that is not the case. Sri Ramakrishna is saying, the mother replies, "Child, its pressure itself will wake you up. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to ask me to remind you about that, because I can't remind you. When you feel the pressure, when you feel like going to the bathroom, you yourself will come and ask me." The hint which Sri Ramakrishna is giving, that there is no need to convince other people of the importance of spirituality, spiritual practices unnecessarily. If a person is really desirous of knowing, he will himself come to you. The Divine Mother, if a person really deserves that he should get spiritual knowledge, the Guru comes to him, or maybe he gets the Guru or gets the spiritual knowledge, he gets the right kind of advice at the right time, whether it is through scripture, whether it is through a book, whether it is through a mantra given by a Guru, or whether it is God himself who comes in his dream or something and gives him some kind of hint that he has to come for spirit. When the thirst comes, when that desire to go to the bathroom comes, Sri Ramakrishna is saying the child will he doesn't have to be woken up. The mother doesn't have to tell him that now you have to go to the bathroom. He will himself say, I have to go now, I feel the pressure and I have to go to the bathroom. So Sri Ramakrishna, even in humor, so everybody laughs, but there is a deep meaning in this, what he is trying to convey. He is saying when a person is really fit for spirituality, or when he is really desirous, when he wants to understand what spirituality is, what experiential spirituality is. Spiritual understanding is one thing. Trying to understand these concepts is the first step. It cannot be called as a hunger, or it cannot be called as a thirst even. Because when you really thirst for these experiences, when you feel that if Sri Ramakrishna has experienced God, if somebody else has experienced God, If they say that there is some experience, then why can't I experience? If somebody tells me that Sri Ramakrishna is experienced, that is not enough for me. When will I experience? That's what Swamiji was eager. So that's why Swami Vivekananda said, the great prophets like Christ, Moses, Ramakrishna, Rama, Krishna, and all these great prophets, they are all gone. They are gone in the sense they have experienced certain truths and they have gone. But what about you? What difference does it make that Moses has seen God, or Moses has seen light behind the bush or inside the bush, or Christ has seen the Father in heaven? If Christ sees that doesn't mean that every Christian will see him. If you are really a follower of Christ, then you have to see the same vision as Christ saw, or at least a fragment of that vision, of that experience. So it is experience which is important. So that's why he says, a longing for God comes in its own time. So you can't force. You can't tell a person that you should have this experience once. If he feels that, he will himself come to you. He says, if it is really true, why am I wasting my time trying to understand? I have understood enough. Now give me an experience of what you are telling. That restlessness was there in Swami Vivekananda. If you see, Swami Vivekananda, when he went to Sri Ramakrishna, he had already approached a lot of scholars and a lot of intellectual people. He had gone to them and asked them, I understand the thing which you are explaining to me. I have a wonderful concept of what you want to say. But when you say Sat Chit Ananda, when you talk of this Ananda, when you talk of eternal existence, can you give me a glimpse? Have you seen God, or have you experienced the things which you are telling? Whether it is formless God as the Brahmos did. So he asked Devendranath Tagore, you speak wonderfully, I want to know whether you can give me that experience. So Devendranath simply kept quiet and said, you have wonderful yogi's eyes, you will see those visions one day. So Naren was not satisfied. He said, I have not come to you to, I have not asked you to praise me, but I want those experiences myself. So then he goes on and on and on, and finally he comes to a guru or Sri Ramakrishna who tells him, no, not only I have seen him, but I can show him to you also. Give the experience of God to you. And of course he doesn't give the full experience at a time, because the first experience itself was too much for Narendranath. He felt he was not ready. So then he said, okay, I am withdrawing it, but when you are ready, you will get that experience. When your job in this world is over, when you have finished the job which Mother has commissioned you to do, then you will get the full experience. Then you will eat the mango. The mango is with me now. You have just had a taste of that mango, but the full mango will be given to you when you are done with the job which he wants to get done through you. That's why Sri Ramakrishna dedicated Swami Vivekananda to the Divine Mother. You know that whole story. And that Divine Mother made him do all the work. So that's why we have to wait. It's not that you desire an experience and you get it immediately. It is not possible. Sri Ramakrishna is saying, till you feel that hunger, till you really feel hungry, you will not ask for food. You will be happy playing with the toys. So that's why he says, longing for God comes in its own time. Now he comes to another aspect. We have a few minutes. We'll discuss this briefly and discuss this topic, because this topic is very important. Sri Ramakrishna is trying to tell Shashada Tarka Chodamani that there are different types of gurus. There are different types of gurus as there are different types of physicians. There are some physicians who just prescribe the medicine and they don't bother whether you take the medicine or not. They do their job and then they believe that the patient, it's left for the patient whether he should take the medicines on time or whether even if he doesn't take, it doesn't bother. He says, my job was to prescribe the medicine, I have done it. So also, he says there are three types of gurus, physicians. One class feels the pulse of the patient, prescribes medicine for him and then leaves him, saying, take this medicine. Such physicians are of the lowest class. They are the common preachers whom we see. Similarly, some religious teachers just give instructions. but they do not check to see whether or not their teachings have done any good, and they don't even bother to find out. Another class of physicians, which are slightly higher, better doctors, they arrange for the medicine and also ask the patient to take it. If the patient does not want to take it, they reason with him, try to explain him, try to cajole him, try to tell him, explain, so if you don't take the medicines, you will not be cured. These are physicians of the mediocre class, the slightly higher class. Likewise, there are mediocre class religious teachers also. They preach and also explain to people in many ways so that their advice is followed. They go to the level of the student and they try in different ways, saying that, okay, you do this. Then the disciple says, no, okay, I can't do this. Then he says, okay, can you do this? So there are many alternatives which a religious teacher or a guru is supposed to put before the disciple, so that the disciple, Sri Ramakrishna,
my apologies, I don't understand.
So Sri Ramakrishna was mentioning about the second class of gurus, and then there is the highest class of physician. If gentle persuasion fails to make the patient understand, such physicians even use force. If need be, they put their knees on the patient's chest and force the medicine down his throat. In the same way, there is a highest class of religious teacher. Such teachers also use force to direct their disciples to God. So this reminds me of a wonderful guru whose name was Swami Trigunatitananda. Perhaps you know about, you might have heard, he was one of the brother disciples of Swami Vivekananda, who started the San Francisco Center. He built the first Hindu temple in the West. So he was a sevak, he was a disciple of Ma. In fact, though he was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna and a Guru Bhai of Swamiji, he and Swami Yogananda were given mantra diksha by Holy Mother Sharda Devi, though he is considered to be a direct disciple. And he was one of the first disciples, along with Swami Abhedananda, to be sent to the West by Swami Vivekananda to preach Vedanta, and he did, and he built the first Hindu temple, which is still there. It's a heritage building and started the first Hindu monastery in the world, in America. So this San Francisco monastery was where he had a group of very young disciples. Most of them were Westerners. Not most, all of them. There were hardly any Indians there. So all the disciples who joined that monastery there were men as well as women. He had a separate convent for women, and for men there was another monastery. So he used to be very strict in his discipline. He used to make them work very hard, do karma yoga, do bhakti yoga, also attend all the prayers and meditation and all those things. So he, like the Uttam Guru or this ideal doctor or physician, he once told some of the younger disciples, especially the women disciples, they were finding the discipline too tough. I mean, they were physically tired. They could not, physically not able to cope up with the sadhana and all those things. Then they said, Swami, are you not too harsh on us? Then he became very animated. He said, you see, even if it is necessary, I'll break every bone in your body, but I want you to reach immortality. I want to see that in this life itself, you touch God so that you are safe. You don't have to be born again and come back to this world and suffer all these sufferings. Have you not suffered enough in this life? Don't you feel like having mukti? So even if I have to break every bone of your body, I'll see that you go to the other shore and you never come back and are never born in this world to undergo this suffering again and again. So to get rid of misery forever, as Buddha said, that was his mission. He wanted to find a solution for humanity so that they don't suffer. They get rid of their suffering eternally. So also Sri Ramakrishna says this ideal guru, who is like Trigunatitanji used to say, that I'll he used to also have some wonderful quotes, he used to say, do or die, but you will not die. People are afraid that too much of sadhana or too much of hard work, if a religious person does, in the process he may die. But he said, you won't die because you will become immortal. You definitely do or die, but you will not die. The famous quotation is, when we want to have some worldly gain, people used to inspire them, especially when you go for battle. Many people knew when you go for a battle, either you will come back victorious or you will die in the battle. So, Sri Ramakrishna, Trigunatita used to use that quote but modify it a little bit. Do or die, but you will not die. So, that is what the Uttam Guru does. The Pandit says, sir, if there are religious teachers of this highest class. Now you see, Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani is a very intellectual person. He is asking a very tricky question to Sri Ramakrishna. If there are really religious teachers of the highest class, then why do you say that one does not gain knowledge till the right time? Now, Sri Ramakrishna gives such a wonderful reply. You see how witty he is. He says, that is all right, but think, if the medicine doesn't reach the stomach, if the patient vomits, then what can the physician do? Then even the physician of the highest class is helpless. So you should instruct only after judging the listener. You people instruct without having examined the receptacle. When a boy comes to me, I ask him about his family. Suppose his father is dead and he has left some debts. How can the boy give his mind to God? Do you hear what I am saying, brother? The Pandit says, yes sir, I am listening to everything. So then Sri Ramakrishna, I will conclude with this. He gives an example of some Sikh soldiers. Sikhs used to come to him. Some Sardarjis used to come, Sikhs used to come. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying, once a group of Sikh soldiers came to the temple at Dakshineshwar. I met them in front of Ma Kali's shrine. One of them said, God is very kind. I said, are you sure? Sri Ramakrishna asked them, are you sure God is very kind? Then I said, why Maharaj? Those Sikh devotees said, why Maharaj? God gives us food. He cares for us so much. I said, what is that to wonder at? God is the father of all. If a father doesn't look after his children or son, who else will? Will people of the neighborhood do it? So Narendra asks, shouldn't God be called merciful? Then Sri Ramakrishna gives a beautiful answer. Then Narendra was listening to that. See, if we thank God for all the things He has done to us, then why should we not thank Him? Is He not merciful? Is He a strict taskmaster? So Sri Ramakrishna corrects Narendra. He said, I don't say that. Am I stopping you from calling Him merciful? What I mean is that God is our own. He is not a stranger. Then the Pandit says, precious words. Ramakrishna to Narendra, I was listening to your song. Now he comes to a conclusion. This dialogue comes to an end. But we end with on a very high note. Sri Ramakrishna is telling Narendranath that God is merciful, but that doesn't mean that that is the highest type of quality you attribute to Him. You see, in most of the religions, for example, Brahmo Samaj prayers were always like that. God, oh God, you are very merciful, you are so kind, you give me this, you give me that, you give us the sun, you give us the moon, you have given us the air to breathe, water, and all those prayers were there. But Sri Ramakrishna's devotion is little higher. See, when you consider God to be your own, you don't thank your father or your mother. You don't thank your guru. If the guru does something for you, if the mother does something for you, if your father does something, it's their duty. By virtue of their being your parents or being your guru or your teacher, they are obliged to do it. There is nothing merciful about that. If a father feeds the son or the child, or a mother feeds the child will not say, it will simply demand, and that Sri Ramakrishna says is a higher attitude. That is the beauty of this gospel. He has made God intensely human for us. We understand our human emotions. We just don't go on thanking our father and mother. We think, they have given birth to me, they are supposed to feed me, they are supposed to educate me, They're supposed to provide everything for me. And we don't go on thank. If he's a stranger, then we may thank. If some stranger comes and helps you or gives you something, then we may say, oh, thank you for doing all these things, because we can't expect. But Sri Ramakrishna is telling Narendranath, I'm not saying you don't call him merciful. If you call him merciful, you will consider God to be a stranger, which I don't want. Don't think he is a stranger. Don't think your parents are your strangers. Don't think God is a stranger. Don't think your guru is a stranger. You have a right. You have to think of them as your own, so that the more deeper the relationship between you and God, between you and your parents, between you and your guru intensifies, the less you thank him or less you feel that whatever they have is my own. Whatever Sri Ramakrishna says, when a son has a very rich father, he knows for certain, I don't have to work hard. I have whatever my father has will after all be inherited by me. He is so comfortable, he feels protected, he feels so much secure. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is telling the Bhakti Yoga is the yoga for this age, because it gives you a kind of security which other yogas do not do. Or in all the other yogas, you see, if you do Raj Yoga, you have to assert yourself. You have to be independent. If you do Karma Yoga, you have to be independent. If you do Jnana Yoga, pure Jnana Yoga, then you have to be independent. You have to be very strong. You have to consider both joy and sorrow as the same. But Sri Ramakrishna knows that for a person living in the world, Bhakti Yoga is easy, because he considers God to be his very own. If God is your very own, it gives you a greater sense of security. You see, one of the basic demands of a human being, one of the basic of an ordinary human being, is that he wants to be secure. He wants to belong to somebody. The sense of belonging is so deep in us. We think that we belong to our wives and husbands. Husband thinks he belongs to his wife. The child thinks the mother belongs to him. So that sense of belonging, when it is shattered, when something happens, and then that sense of belonging goes away, as it happens in the world. Sometimes the parents perhaps don't care for their children, the children don't care for their parents, and the children, if they have placed a lot of sense of security in their parents or the people whom they love in this world, and if they don't get it, then they get sorrow. That's why they say in Bhakti Yoga, when God is your own, when you get a sense of security, a sense of protection, a sense of belonging to somebody who is your very own, whatever happens, that relationship is not going to break. And that relationship gives you strength, and that relationship of which a bhakta has for his God, who is intensely human for him, as a father, as a mother, that intense belonging or that intense sense of protection or security which he feels, that if it develops, then he feels safe. Then anything may happen to him in the world, he is not affected, he is not bothered, or he is not influenced. It does not shock him too much, because he knows that after all I have somebody whom I can call my mother. That's why Holy Mother's famous assurance given to one of the disciples who was very much upset, and he said, Mother, I am not good, I don't belong to this place, I don't have those qualities which your other disciples have, I just want to leave this place. So Mother just caught him and said, don't worry. She did not allow him to go. She told that gentleman, that young boy, who later on became a great monk. So she told him, see, whenever you are in trouble, whenever you feel depressed, you just have to think that you have a mother. So we conclude with this. Sri Ramakrishna, when he says Bhakti Yoga is the yoga for this age, because he knew this is an age where we are depending on human relationships which are being shattered every day. The relationships, it's not that in the earlier ages it was not there. Even in Mahabharata, brothers and brothers have quarreled. Father has quarreled with the son, son has quarreled with the father. So it's not a new phenomenon. As long as you are in the world, These things are going to happen. Relationship, that's why they call it is anitya. This world is anitya. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, Anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Why should you worship me? He is telling Arjuna, why should you worship me? Because in this world, all the relationship, all the things, they are temporary. They are not permanent. They are transient. They won't last long. Even if they are good, the relationship may break any time, or somebody may die. So there is nothing eternal in this world. So having come to this asukam means that which does not give you joy. Imam prapya, having attained to this world, you worship me. You consider me to be a sense, somebody who gives you a sense of security, protection, love, a sense of belonging. So this is the entire essence of what Bhakti Yoga, and that is the kind of Bhakti Yoga. So after this, I believe this constant talk of Sri Ramakrishna, emphasizing or explaining to the Pandit Shashadhar Tarka Chudamani, the value of experiential spirituality, the knowledge of God which one can experience, the love of God which one can experience. We experience human emotions, we experience human relationship, but if we experience that same human relationship with reference to God, with God as taking the place of the father or the mother or the Ishta or the friend, whatever relationship, if that relationship deepens with God, then our sense of security, the sense of belonging, the sense of protection, and the sense of fearlessness, and all these wonderful qualities which we seek in the world outside, we try to seek for this fearlessness or the sense of security in money. But then we find that when something drastic happens, money is not going to save us. There is this incident which I was really pathetic when I saw a person jumping from the 10th floor. They showed it on YouTube. I think then they have removed it now. A millionaire with a huge empire and huge wealth, he lost his entire family to this coronavirus. Entire family, I think the whole family except he himself was wiped out. So then that person who thought this all the wealth of the world he found, it could not save a single member of my family. So he just, out of depression and out of disgust, he just went on the top of the floor. There were police standing below and watching him helplessly, and he just jumped. So that shows that by placing one's faith, placing one's security in the wrong things which are transient, that's why these scriptures, that's why Bhagavad Gita and Sri Ramakrishna is telling us again and again, try to distinguish between this Nitya and Anitya. If you hold on to the Anitya, you can have if you hold on to the Nitya, that is God, you can still live in the Anitya. You live in the world, you don't have to give up the world. When one becomes a Bhakta, he doesn't have to give up the world. He lives with his family, he lives with everybody with whom he was living before. But he places his faith, his relationship with God is far superior than his relationship with the people around him. Because he knows, here is one who is eternally my own, and whatever happens, this relationship will never break. And he will be there for me now. He was there for me in the past, he was there for me, or he or she, the mother, was there for me in the present, and she will be there for me in the future, whatever happens to me. So this eternal relationship one has to cultivate, and once we do that, then we find that security which we are sadly missing in this world. So we will now we have already taken 15 minutes more, so I take your leave, and hopefully we will meet next Sunday at the same time at 5 o'clock. So please try to join this session, though it is there on WhatsApp. You please try to join this session a little early, so that of course today Parijat was there as a host to admit people. In Zoom I see now there are 53 participants and quite a few on Facebook as well. So I wish all of you, I pray to Sri Ramakrishna, will end with a prayer. In the next class there will be a song, so I'm trying to see that we can play that song as well. I hope I am able to adjust and make an arrangement for that. And there is a beautiful song, I think, in the next conversation which Sri Ramakrishna is having with the. In fact, in this conversation, Narendranath had sung a song, but the lyrics of that song are not there. That's why I could not. He says Naren sings a song and then he goes away. So we have not discussed that. So we'll meet again on next Sunday, and hopefully next Saturday, since I have a class, university class which I have committed. Of course, there only few people can attend. It's a WebEx meeting, but since the Zoom works very well, I may try to take a class on Saturday in the morning if it is not convenient. Those of you whom you could join this, you can join it in the morning, because evening I have a class 5:45 to 6:45, which I can't have two classes on the same day. So Saturday we'll have something on Sri Ramakrishna, not the gospel. Gospel will be on Sunday. We will have the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, which is his life, which is also very interesting. It's the great master which is now been published as the Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. So we will meet next Saturday and Sunday. So I take your leave. Tava kathamrutam tapta jivanam kaviviridhitam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grinanti Ye Bhurida Jana. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Panamastu.
Pranam Maharaj is Ajay here.
Oh, namaste.
Pranam Maharaj is Ajay here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you keep it on for some time if they want to.
Shall I mute everyone?
Hello.
Maharaj, can you keep it for another 2 or 3 minutes?
Yes, namaste. Suha, how are you? Hey, Parijat, if somebody is speaking, you just highlight them.
Pranam Maharaj.
Namaste, namaste. Amit?
Together.
Okay, so I take your leave now.
I've muted everyone at the moment.
I hope all are keeping well.
Okay.
Oh, let us all pray for everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, hey,
can't see
Parijat,
you.
don't mute
But
them.
I can't see you.
Acha,
You have to scroll the screen.
Parijat.
Huh? Scroll the screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So swipe the
Acha,
screen.
I have one request to make. I forgot to tell you all.
Parijat. Arita Didi, but can't see Maharaj.
Hey,
How
Parijat,
can I see Maharaj?
just
Swipe the screen, then you will be able to see everyone.
Parijat, hey, you mute everybody just for a minute.
Namaste.
Parijat, you mute everybody for it. See, I have one request to make to all of you. Since all of us are at home, I have a humble suggestion to make. Parijat, first please mute everybody. Parijat? Parijat?
Yeah, I'm going to mute everyone's on.
Hey, Parijat, please mute everybody. Yeah. So I have a very humble request to make. Since
Yeah.
all of us, but you unmute
Yeah,
me.
yeah, I've done.
Have you unmuted me?
To unmute Swamiji.
Parijat?
Yeah, Swamiji, I've unmuted.
Okay.
I've muted everyone.
So I have a very humble request to make to all of you. Most of you are working from home or restricted indoors. So what I feel is, but there are quite a few, even in this whole group, who are on the front line. They are working. Most of them, some of them are, because of their profession, they are required to work in on the front line. So they are exposed to, we are facing a pandemic. So when we have this opportunity, I would humbly request all of you to increase our prayer. Anyway, we do our prayer, we do our japa, we do everything. So it would be a good idea if we can, all of us, whoever is online now and who has the spare time to, instead of just thinking about the statistics, what is happening, where, or there are so many things which are shared on WhatsApp, I see that, but it's not going to solve the problem. So the best way to solve the problem is to take the name of the Lord as much as possible, or pray to Him for all those frontline workers or frontline people, not only amongst our devotees but even others. They are also there. Many of our devotees are working day and night because their job requires them to be on the front line when we people are in the safety of our homes. So it would be a nice idea if we could pray for them and use our spare time, whatever little spare time we get, instead of wasting it on trivialities. If we can do as much japa, the Guru given mantra, if it is there, or a simple prayer, any prayer will do. If we can do that, I think it will create a very good atmosphere and benefit all of us. Thank you. Yeah. You can, Parijat, you can end the meeting.
Okay, Swamiji. Okay, Pranam.